Fletcher is joining me today from the UK on a mission to help people be more conscious in their business and inspire women to be fully expressed in their life and work. Today, we are talking about how to create a brand with heart on Awaken and Ascend. I'm Jennifer Regular, your host. So excited to welcome you, Kat, and each and every one of you that are tuning in right now. Kat, thank you so much for joining me. I'm excited for this conversation.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
And this is such a great topic too, to be able to create a brand with heart, because it's a whole different way of thinking about business and how we show up in it. And often it's head first, right? And trying to be in some kind of cookie cutter mold of what that's supposed to look like and be more professional and kind of lose sight of how to be more personal and really connect. So you get to do this and help people cultivate their brand through their heart. And I know, especially for an entrepreneur, we are our business. So it really
Mm.
makes a lot of sense in how we are showing up and how we are presenting ourselves
Mhm.
from a good place. So I'm really curious though, Kat, how did you get started on this journey of being a brand designer and strategist?
So I've always been creative, and ever since I was young, I knew that I wanted to be a graphic designer. So I studied at A level, I studied at uni, and I worked for about 5 years in the industry as a like a full-time designer in house roles. And then I just decided that I wanted a different kind of life. I wanted to travel, I wanted to be more free, and I wanted to work on a bigger variety of projects. So that's when I went freelance. And I did this whilst I was traveling in Costa Rica. And then, yeah, my business just evolved from there. And it started as graphic design. And then it kind of grew into creating brands. And then I started learning more about brand strategy. And I had a bit of imposter syndrome here because I never had been like a brand strategist. So I was kind of like, who am I to do this? But then I started learning about it and I realized that I actually had a very big background in brand strategy from my work in my previous roles. I just never was called a brand strategist. Um, and yeah, from there, my business has just evolved and I've kind of refined it more and more. So now I'm really tailoring my business to working with women who are leading conscious businesses. This is something that I feel really passionate about.
I love that. And being able to express who they are and what they stand for and how they're leading their business and their life and their work through that. Because I find that our business is often a vehicle for what helps us fulfill our purpose. And I love that you talked about too that you never really considered yourself as a brand strategist per se and had that imposter syndrome going on. And I find that that's what happens when we try to attach to certain labels and constructs and what we think that means, right? And how we fit into that. And I find with entrepreneurs, especially, that we're not really made to fit in, we're actually made to stand out. And I
Mm.
imagine this is what you discover more and more of and really get to bring out in people when you're helping them create their brand, right? Is how are they going to stand out?
Yeah, and I think so. One of the things that happens with imposter syndrome is that we can get really attached to our hard skills, and we forget the soft skills.
Mm.
And there's a lot of soft skills that go into helping someone create a brand, like listening and building trust and inspiring, holding space. All of these soft skills, I would argue, are even more important than the hard skills of understanding like the logistics of creating a strategy. Like you do need both. But yeah, when you're creating a heart-centered brand, it's really important in my work that I can help women feel safe to open up first to me about what their story is, understand like what their true purpose is, really work to peel back the layers, and then feel safe enough to express it to the world as well, because that's a really big step.
Oh, I love that so much. Yeah, to really get in touch with who we are and what they're most passionate about too. Because the way I see passion, when you break up the word, it's pass I on. That I being your soul's expression of what you're here to pass on in this lifetime. So I love that you start out by asking people about that to go a little deeper, like who are they really and what is their work truly about? and then help them to bring that out into the world. So, what helped you, Kat, in being able to bring out who you are and your work out into the world? What supported you in that?
Mm. Oh, that's such a good question. And if I'm completely honest, like it's an ongoing process. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to sit here and pretend that I have it all figured out and that I'm like always just like so open about things because it is a work in progress. I think doing inner healing work is really important. It's getting over that fear of being seen, telling people our stories, telling people our beliefs, because this has the power to alienate people when we speak about what we believe in. And
Mm-hmm.
that's scary because humans have evolved to want to be accepted. So
Mm-hmm.
it's about being able to move through that fear. And that takes time. I'm personally not a big fan of just like these phrases like feel the fear and do it anyway or take the leap. I prefer a slower approach where it's more like the exposure effect and building a bridge. So let's say you have a goal that feels kind of scary, like telling your story and it's quite personal. For some people, they like to just jump and just tell the story. I prefer to do things slowly in stages. I think it's less overwhelming for the nervous system and it allows us to keep in touch with our intuition. So we make sure that what we're sharing is actually the right thing to share because sometimes there are things that perhaps would not be the right thing to share. And if we take on this approach of just push through the fear, I think we take ourselves out of alignment. So yeah, a gentle approach, but a consistently moving forward approach is my approach.
Yes, and you said something really key in there too, Kat, and that is being less overwhelming to the nervous system when we take on too much. And so slowing things down and giving the time to realign and really feel into the rhythm that
Mm,
builds the momentum, right? Rather than trying to push forth or, do things before it's time, before it's
mm,
time. So how do you know when it's time? Like, how do you see people evolving through that space of who they think they were, what their brand is, and what they're about to revealing what their true work is?
mm. I think it's an ongoing process. So as you're leading a business, you are constantly asking yourself questions.
Mm,
This is the self-awareness practice, which we can see through our business. And when we're creating a brand, it creates like a safe container where we can do a lot of that deep work together and in one go. And it does usually take a couple of months to build a brand. So it's not like all in one big go.
mm,
And I think through the process, people start to see themselves. So, in order to show people who you are, you have to see yourself first. So, that's why we start with these really introspective questions, which are less loaded. So, I try and stay away from asking people, what is your brand purpose? What are your brand values? Because that's our work to do together. I'm not just here to ask you these answers, I'm here to help you find them. So, I prefer to ask questions like, what is deeply important to you in life? Because that's going to be what's important to you in business as well. Or things like, how do you want to operate? What stories have happened to you in the past and also recently, which are influencing your beliefs? What are you for and what are you against? So this is all, they're better questions rather than just like, what are your brand philosophies? They're more human questions and less copywriter questions.
yes, yes. Oh, that's so good. That's so good. And like you
Mm,
say, there's a lot of focus on that inner work, and that inner work leads to the outer mastery, right? It's the being that prompts the doing. So I love
mm,
that you really center on that and the person themselves. And like you say, how women especially can be fully expressed in their life and in their work. So can you talk a little bit more about that as well? Let's unpack that a little bit.
yeah, I think it's really important. So there's a lot of talk now around female empowerment and women finding their voice. And I think it's really needed. The female voice is so needed. But I think we need to look at the whole picture and we need to look first at why women struggle to use their voice. And it's because genetically, we are the weaker and more vulnerable sex. So there is, through the majority of women's life experience, a threat of male violence. And this has often led us to make ourselves small in certain situations, which is necessary to keep us safe. So we need to recognize this, and we need to give ourselves grace for all of the times that we didn't use our voice to protect ourselves, and allowance for all of the future times that we will not use our voice to keep ourselves safe. Once we can look at it in this way, then we can be in our discernment around when it is safe and when it is not. Because otherwise, it's like we're just living in this fear, like this fear in the dark, and we just feel this kind of on edge feeling of like, oh, I can't speak my truth. But when we can recognize, okay, this time it's not safe to speak up because I'm protecting myself, but that means that all the other times, actually, there's a lot of times when we can use our voice, and it would really benefit us to speak our truth, and that would help us thrive. So it's about being in that discernment. And our businesses, we can make a safe container for us to express ourselves, and we can make it a comforting and loving place for ourselves where we can feel fully self-expressed.
I love that. And speaking your truth. Yes, absolutely. And being able to be safe in that. Because this is really important when we're putting ourselves out there. It can feel very scary and threatening, and especially for women, being able to put themselves out there. And so a lot of people don't. They don't put themselves out there. They're not sharing their gifts, they're not um, for many reasons, and a lot of it fear or imposter syndrome, and it's interesting about imposter syndrome too, because it's mainly high achieving people that experience this. They are people who are accomplishing and achieving and in pursuit of something. But being able to express yourself to truly thrive, that's part of, a different way of looking at the field of fear and do it anyway. It's becoming more comfortable in entering that growth zone to be able to express and share your gifts and feel safe in doing that as well. So, what would help people to feel safe to put themselves out there, to be able to share their gifts and bring it out into the world that is so needed right now?
Mm, yeah, it's really needed. I think people's essence, which they can infuse into their business and their brand, has a lot of different layers. So it comes from like their story, it comes from their beliefs and their opinions, it comes from their values, and all of these things are entwined. And then it's also entwined with their gifts. So what are their strengths? What is their personality? Are they a little bit silly? Are they playful? Or are they very feminine? Like these are all things that we can infuse into our businesses, and it's not going to look the same as anyone else's. And that's actually what creates a connection. It's really hard for people to connect to a brand if it's just like the visual aesthetics and there's no real human behind the brand. It doesn't give something that people can like glue to.
Oh, thank you for that. Yeah, that's so important. The connection, being able
Mm,
to truly connect and be authentic in presence. And this is part of why I primarily focus on this show, even Awaken and Ascend, being a YouTube show so that we can see each other, feel each other, see each other's expressions, and really connect, because so much of our communication is nonverbal. Right. So
mm,
it's nice when we can actually be face to face with each other as well, and truly connect and be more personable than professional,
mm,
to be who we truly are rather than be in this place of productivity and performance all the time. Like, of course, we want to be productive. But let's be passionately productive, being doing the things that we love to do, being able to express who we truly are and the work that comes through us and the gifts we have to share to be able to reveal more of ourselves through the process. And you talked about, it being a process, at least a couple months, and being able to trust the process as well, that it is unfolding in the perfect way. And, people think sometimes they give ourselves pressure and deadlines and the have tos and we should do's and all of those things that can block that creative sense. Then we get into more of the control rather than the creation mode. And so, what would support people in staying in that open space of possibilities and creation and trust?
yeah. So I think like just I know it's really hard to step out of that productivity mode, but I think understanding that attracts people to you is your essence and your personality and your uniqueness. And it's more to do with who you are rather than how much you do. Or at least it's about being who you are and then doing from that place, because you could be hustling so much, but not really seeing very many results in your business because you're hustling from a place of not really knowing who you are. So it could just be that the actions that you're taking to move forward are completely out of alignment with what actually inspires you. So I think staying inspired and staying connected to yourself is really important. So make sure that you're feeding yourself with inspiration, whether it's art, podcasts, books. Continue to feed yourself with inspiration. Also learning from your community, that's a really big inspiration. And then integrate that into learning about yourself. And then you'll never be stuck with what to create and what to put out there, and it will flow a lot more easily. You won't be thinking about what the algorithm wants
Yeah.
or what you should be doing or what your competitor, just be doing what you want to do, and then people will sense that and they'll love it.
I love it too. And these are such great suggestions. And you know what? I'm going to put a link in the show notes for my Inspired Living blog because there's some great articles and posts there about how to
Mm.
be in alignment, in divine alignment with your divine nature and in harmony with who you truly are and what you're meant to be doing here. And, you know, how to overcome some of the overwhelm and the hustle and move into a space of harmony. So, several articles about that actually in the blog. So, I'll make sure I put a link for that in the show notes here. And as well as some information to contact you, Kat, because I know there's a lot that you're offering. So share a little bit more about what that is, what you can do for them.
Okay, yeah. So generally my work, it's creating brands. So I do the brand strategy and I also do the brand design. And as we've been talking about in this episode, it's all from a very heartfelt and holistic place, so that what the business owner has is something that they feel really connected to and excited to share. And then I also have on my website some resources. So things like workbooks, blogs, and just, yeah, things that people can use to learn about branding and business.
Oh, that's so great. So yeah, let's offer these resources. We'll put all the links in the show notes here for you all. And I'm sure you got gathered a lot of great insight and information and some aha new perspective from this conversation as well. We'd love to hear about that in the comments. And Kat, I wonder if there's anything more that you'd like to share while we're here together.
I don't know, like a kind of a closing word. I think I would like to just encourage people to take one small step. Don't think that you have to take a massive leap. Try every day to just take one small step in the direction that you, like deep down, you know is going to help you thrive, but you might feel a little bit apprehensive. I think that for me is like a really good way to go.
I think that's a fantastic way to go. And absolutely, I agree with you. And like you said, that's easier on the nervous system. So
Mhm.
let it be easy, let it be graceful. No, thank you, Kat. Oh, this is so great, giving me some new perspectives as well. I'm grateful for you being here and a guest on Awaken and Ascend today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I've loved the conversation.
Me too. And I hope you all did too. Thank you so much for joining us on Awaken and Ascend. We're here every week on Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific. So make sure you hit that notification bell and you'll never miss an episode. This could really change your life. See you next time.